Well, we're standing outside polling stations that are lined up along the Mekong River in the capital, Phnom Penh. Voting lines have started to thin out a little bit, and that's important because voter turnout has become a key issue in this election. That's because the outlawed opposition, the CNRP, have called for a boycott. Now, the Prime Minister has called those calls illegal, and he says anyone who doesn't vote is destroying democracy. Now, to get a little bit more on this, we're joined by Phil Robertson from Human Rights Watch. Phil, why is Prime Minister Hun Sen so invested in this idea of a high voter turnout?
Well, it seems for the Cambodian People's Party, the ruling party here, that more is better. They want more political parties, they want more turnout, they want more observers. This is all an effort to try to legitimize an illegitimate election. This is all a part of Hun Sen's effort to try to portray this election as really sort of designated him as a duly democratically elected leader, someone who deserves respect on the world stage. And the reality is, as you mentioned, they've dissolved the main opposition party. The party that won 44% of the election in the local polls last year doesn't exist. It's not on the ballot today. And so that's the major problem.
Do you think intimidation of voters is also an issue?
Well, it certainly is. We are hearing that from voters across the country. We're hearing people facing possible penalties, local officials not working on their paperwork or their house registration, other key documents, because ultimately, if you don't vote, they're saying we're going to retaliate against you. We're seeing people being forced to vote in order to be in a taxi queue, for a moto dump driver, or local people selling on the side of the street being told we're not going to rent you this place anymore if you don't go vote. So the various types of intimidation are varied and depend on people's circumstances, but people are vulnerable to that, and I think probably will go vote.
This election has been widely condemned as being a sham. The Western states, particularly the EU and the US, have been particularly critical. What is the next step for them after this election? How do they sanction Hun Sen without punishing everyday Cambodians, many of whom are very poor?
Well, I think the first step will be very strong statements rejecting this result by the United States, by the EU, by the others who set out that, we weren't fooled by this election game that Hun Sen has pulled off, this sort of charade on the Mekong. And second, then looking at targeted sanctions against key people who are systematic human rights abusers and heavily corrupt individuals who have propped up Hun Sen over the years. The so-called Dirty Dozen, the group of military and police commanders that we identified in a report last month that have for years abetted the human rights violations of the Cambodian government.
Okay, Phil Robertson from Human Rights Watch, thank you
Thank you
very much for your time. Well, there's just under 4 hours left of voting, and polls are due to close around 3 p.m. local time.